celebrating this film revival generation, and a lot is happening politically in this country. A lot is happening culturally, socially. When you look at the trajectory of where we are right now culturally, when it comes to quote unquote revival or the reverberations of revival, what do you think?
Well, first of all, Billy, it comes back to leadership, and there's a verse in the Bible that talks about, when the righteous lead, the nations rejoice, the people rejoice. And I think that, there's always going to be the naysayers. There's always going to be those that don't like what's happening here in Washington, D.C. right now under the Trump administration. But what President Trump is doing is just like this great venue that we're sitting in here at the Kennedy Center. It's a beautiful venue. It's a memorial. All Americans should be able to come and not only enjoy the architecture of the building, but enjoy the entertainment and the arts that are performed here. And I think what we've seen over time is that any sort of conservative work was pushed to the side and not welcome. And President Trump has changed that. And at the end of the day, I mean, my wife Christy and I, we were in the entertainment business. We had a dinner theater in Indiana, and I kept always reminding people that it's show business. And that people will vote with their pocketbook, and when they don't feel welcome or they don't feel like it's content that is good for their family, they're not going to go. And so President Trump realizes that, and the content that is now being performed here at the Kennedy Center, it's for all Americans, and I think that's a good direction for us to go.
Yeah, it's interesting. What you're saying is true too. For a long time in Hollywood in general, Christians were sort of overlooked. There was a time in the beginning of Hollywood where Christians were a huge part of, Christian themes, and then that sort of went away. And you've had a situation now where Christians are much more vocal. Chip and Joanna Gaines have found themselves under fire. There's different things that happen, and people say, well, we're not comfortable with that content. We don't like that. And so people are becoming more vocal, and that's in politics too. I think people were afraid to say what they thought about issues, whether it was the trans bathroom issue or education in general. And now people are standing up. What do you think has shifted that's emboldened people to maybe be a little more open about their beliefs?
Yeah, well, I think when times are quiet and feel like things are good. I think often you think back to I was an 80s kid, and in the 90s, we look back on that with a lot of fondness. But I think as we saw, the same-sex marriage issue being pushed through the 2010, and then that built a lot of momentum, and then the trans issue, and then especially under the Biden administration, they were using the government to basically silence people. They're using the media to silence people. And I think that oftentimes we as Christians, we want to get along with everybody, but at the same time, we can't compromise the truth. I mean, truth is truth to every person. A boy is a boy, a girl is a girl. And those things just can't be changed. In fact, we saw a tragic shooting today up in Minnesota where a transgender individual, a boy, obviously was struggling and decided to take it out on a Catholic school. And so those are things that, we need to teach truth. We should all be pursuing truth in this world. And ultimately for me, the Bible is the truth that I follow. And I want to treat every person with respect, with love, with kindness. But we can't do it and sell lies to our children. And you look at what Broadway has produced over the last few years, people are finally getting fed up with it. And that's why Broadway's struggling economically, because people are like, I'm not going to go see it. I've got other distribution channels that I can go see the type of content that I don't find offensive. For Christy and I at the theater, the best night was when we saw Mom and Dad and the kids and Grandpa and Grandma. That meant that we could communicate and share a message with every generation.
Okay, so a topic shift. You are among those who nominated President Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. Talk about that. People have said, okay, why? We want to understand. So tell us why.
Well, first of all, what Trump has done in the first 6 months of his administration, it's incredible. But I think, he was able to build off of his first term. And, while he's out for 4 years, he understands what it takes to bring people together. I mean, even during his first administration, he went to North Korea. One of the things I believe strongly in is diplomacy and conversations and having a dialogue with people. If you just don't talk to each other, it's easier to call each other names. It's easier to go to war with each other. And President Trump knows how to bring people together. And one of the things that I saw over the past several months is how he handled the situation with Iran and with Israel. I mean, here you have a country that's attacking one of our strongest allies in the Middle East, Israel. And President Trump makes a decision not to go to war, but to go take out their threat of a nuclear bomb. He has brought countries together, India and Pakistan, Azerbaijan uh, and the other country over there north of Iran that has had a conflict for years and years.
Armenia and
Armenia,
Azerbaijan.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and he's bringing countries together. He's trying to resolve a problem in Ukraine. It's a challenging one, but he's at least bringing the parties together. And when you have those sort of conversations, that's how peace comes about. I think he's the strongest negotiator, strongest diplomat we've had since Ronald Reagan. And look at the peace that we have endured over time because of Ronald Reagan's decisions and actions and called out communism. So I think that President Trump, what he's doing in the Middle East with the Abraham Accords, is actually bringing countries together and focusing on commerce rather than on shooting at one another. The situation in Gaza, of course, is a tragic situation, but you have to stop evil. So I believe that when President Trump shows that sort of leadership, it's deserving of a Nobel Peace Prize because he's bringing peace around the world.
All right, I have to ask you about Gaza. You brought it up. I mean, this has become such a lightning rod, and it has been for a long time. There's a lot of debate about the way Israel's presented in media, the way that Israel is, it's always sort of made to look like the villain in these situations. And you do have a humanitarian situation there. I think the debate is over who's causing the humanitarian situation. From your purview as a member of Congress, how do you see that situation?
So I've been to Israel twice in the past 8 months, and talking with IDF soldiers who have been in the Gaza Strip. I've been down on the border, visited some of the kibbutzes and the areas that were attacked on October 7th. Here you have Hamas, which is an evil organization. And this is the thing, we can't be fooled by their rhetoric because they will say, oh, it's IDF that are killing innocent civilians in Gaza. Well, then why don't we open up the southern border and let the Gazans out of Gaza? I mean, when there was a war in Syria several years ago, we let the Syrians leave Syria and they went to refugee camps in Jordan, or they were allowed to go to Turkey. But the Gazan people haven't been allowed to go anywhere. They've been forced to stay in Gaza. They've been used as human shields by Hamas. Hamas knows that if they keep the Gazan people there, they can blame the suffering on Israel. And countries like France and Australia and others are buying it up, and it's just not the case. I think that Prime Minister Netanyahu is making the right decision by going methodically through Gaza and forcing Hamas out. My heart goes out to the Gazan people because they are trapped. And that's where I think that the global community should be coming together and saying, let's get those people out of there and not let Hamas keep them as human shields. Hamas is living over in Qatar in five-star hotels, and they're living at large. But here, these young, these children are being trapped in Gaza and not allowed to leave.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that perspective and breaking it down. Any final thoughts on another topic shift here, but on our film, Revival Generation? We're here to celebrate that. On a positive note, what is your hope for the impact of this film and revival in general?
No, the revival that we've seen across America. My wife Christy and I, we have two Gen Zers, and both in college. One's at Liberty University, one's at Bethel University in South Bend, Indiana. And to see how our boys pursue truth. And I think that's what, young people today are wanting more than ever. There's so much information at their fingertips. They have access to information around the world within seconds. But I think at the end of the day, every one of us as human beings, we want to know what is truth because that creates stability in our lives. And I tell you what, there's nothing more securing to me as an individual to know what I believe. And so having this story being told, especially here at the Kennedy Center, where it's such a beautiful venue and a place that all Americans should be able to visit. I think that tonight's event just shows that good quality content brings out a good audience.
Well, Congressman, I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Billy. Great to be with you.